It's 2:13 in the morning. Everyone's asleep but me, and I just spent the last 5 minutes running through my house looking for a romance novel that didn't have to do with cowboys. And I found one. And it has to do with circus people. And I think maybe cowboys too. This one. This one's the winner. Okay. Oh, we got this at Walmart for $6. It's sad how many of these we have in our house. I'm not going to read you the prologue. And I'm not going to tell you what this is about, other than circus people and cowboys. Enjoy. Let's post a note in here. It takes place in Wenatchee, May 12th of 1888. So it's a period novel. Neato. Hold on, I gotta read the last sentence. Aww. Okay. The rabbit would not come out of the hat. Her name's Fancy. Like, damn, that's a fancy ass hat you've got on. Her name is Fancy. Okay. Fancy could feel the creature with her right hand. It was crouched deep inside its black velvet bag, shivering and stubborn and heavy. The crowd of children in front of the gazebo pressed closer, their freckled faces intent and smudged with strawberry ice cream, their eyes fixed on a battered top hat. Do you guys just want me to find, like, I know what you want. Nasties. Let me find one. No. No, you know what? You're gonna have to wait. You want it. You're gonna have to listen to me read the whole book. Alright, where were we? She can't make no rabbit come out of there, one little boy complained. That ain't even a lady's hat. Very astute of you, little boy. Maybe she ain't no lady. Oh, she's a lady, observed a barefooted demon. Perspiration, trickled between Fancy's breasts, and shoulder blades. That's rough. She tugged harder at the rabbit, conscious of Mr. Ephraim Shibble's cold glare of warning. Beyond his bulky frame, the glorious pink and white blossoms of the apple orchard seemed to shift and shimmer in a haze. Fancy noted distractedly that the colorful ribbons, dozens of bright balloons, and even presents hung from the boughs of one tree. Don't do this to me, Herschel, she pleaded. A breeze scented with blossoms and bruised grass and picnic food cooled her burning cheeks and loosened the damp tendrils of silvery saffron hair clinging to the back of her neck. I told you she couldn't do it, howled the small heckler who had spoken first, squinting up at Fancy in a hostile challenge. Stung anew, Fancy wrenched at Herschel, hard, and he came out of his hat at last, the black bag that had hidden him hanging from his hind legs like a grim flag of defeat. Oh. The adults who gathered to watch shook their heads and turned away, some grumbling, some chuckling, some pitying the proud young woman who stood stiffly in her ridiculous star-speckled dress, still holding the rabbit aloft. As the children scattered too, Fancy bent and thrust an unrepentant Herschel into the wire cage secreted beneath her folding table. When she straightened, she was met with the condemning gaze of Mr. Ephraim Shibble, her employer, because it's important to say his entire name twice. The heavy man, suffering in his tight-fitting suit, bent to take up the worn placard that had stood in front of the table, and perused it with calm disdain. Fancy Jordan, he read in a mocking tone. She sings, she dances, she does magic. Fancy winced and clasped her hands together behind her back. Mr. Shibble, Shibble interrupted by shaking the signboard. A shower of time-dulled glitter fell from the large, carefully formed letters. These are a lot of run-on sentences. You are a fraud, he accused in a scathing undertone. You are an embarrassment, and you are out of a job. Oh, shit, Fancy, goddamn. This was what Fancy had most feared, but she had retained some semblance of composure, and met Mr. Shibble's small, watery eyes squarely. "You cannot leave me here," she said in even tones that betrayed none of the hysteria rising within her. "I have no position, no money. This takes place in Washington. I don't know why I'm reading it with a southern accent, but that just sounds like what it needs." Shibble shoved the battered signboard into her hands. "Then I suggest that you sing and dance, since you are apparently incapable of magic." "You will not travel another mile, Miss Jordan, with my company." "But, no, you have humiliated me for the last time." With that, Mr. Shibble turned and stormed away, to watch one of the other members of the small traveling show perform. Okay, so everything is in regular, but then there's just this one too, and I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't. But there's just this one too. It's just T-O that's italicized. For a moment, Fancy too watched the great Splendini wobble upon his high wire, which loomed all of 5 feet off the ground. That's not very high. When she was sure that she would not be observed, Fancy sunk down to sit on the gazebo's top step, resting her head against the whitewashed railing. A long, despondent sigh escaped her. "You weren't all that bad," remarked a gentle, masculine voice. Ooh! Fancy, on the verge of tears, looked up to see a tall man standing before her, his arms folded, his azure eyes revealing both amusement and sympathy. He wore dark trousers, a vest over a pristine white shirt, and a clerical collar. "That was bad enough to be fired," she argued. He bent, took the signboard from the gazebo floor where Mr. Shibble had dropped it, and read it pensively, as though it were some lofty treatise. "Can you really do magic?" he asked, after some moments. Fancy blushed, though one would never know why. Though one would never know it by the way her act had gone that afternoon. She was, as it happened, a fairly accomplished magician. She could draw coins from behind people's ears, for example, and she could make fire flash from her fingertips. Once, on a particularly good night, she had even sawed a woman in half and put her back together again. Volunteers for that trick were hard to come by, though, and the props had been borrowed from another magician. God damn. "Yes," she said with dignity, "I can do magic." "We could use some of that around here," reflected the young minister. "Oh, so he's a minister. This is not a love interest. Okay." Fancy looked about, really seeing her surroundings for the first time since her arrival earlier that day. Since then, she, like the rest of the troupe, had been too busy preparing for the noon performance to pay much attention. How much longer does this go on? God, this is a long first chapter. Okay, well, you're gonna get like half of a chapter. Now she saw a massive, gracious stone house, the acres of lushly blossomed apple trees that flanked it, the green-gray river tumbling past the sloping front lawn, the gardens with their budding rosebuds and marble benches. Yes, that was all one sentence, and it cut off in a stupid place. "Do you live here?" she ventured, thinking it a marvel that a man of the cloth could be so prosperous. "Yes," replied the Reverend, with a slight bow of his head, an amused twist of his fine lips. "My family owns the land, actually. I manage it." Fancy was impressed. Guess what? That's where you're freaking leaving it. She's impressed. Maybe I'll read more to you later. I'm gonna actually read you a good one now, but it's gonna be in the next video.